The supermarket tank was a prison of shimmering blue tiles. It reeked of chlorine and despair. Yet within its confines, love had blossomed between two lobsters, Sebastian and Marina. Their bond, forged in captivity, was a testament to the enduring power of connection. They would often brush their claws together, a silent language of affection. Their eyes, black and full of unspoken words, spoke volumes of the life they dreamed of sharing. Sebastian, a sturdy lobster with a deep crimson exoskeleton, was fiercely protective of Marina. She, in turn, brought a sense of calm to his existence. Marina was smaller, her shell a gentle orange. Her touch, always soft and reassuring, was the anchor Sebastian clung to in the cold, sterile environment. They would huddle together for hours, whispering stories through the subtle movements of their antennae. Stories of the vast ocean, of coral reefs teeming with life, and of the freedom they yearned for. But these dreams seemed distant and impossible in their watery cage. One day a shadow fell over their world. A large, calloused hand reached into the tank. It belonged to Mitch, the burly seafood worker, his face a mask of indifference to their plight. He snatched Marina from the water, her small claws flailing helplessly. Sebastian lunged, his own claws snapping at the hand, but it was too late. Mitch pulled Marina away, and a chill of dread settled over Sebastian's heart. Marina struggled in Mitch's grasp. Her eyes, wide with terror, met Sebastian's. He saw her silent plea for help, the unspoken promise of their future together, dissolving in the cold air. Desperation surged through him, but he was trapped, helpless to intervene. Mitch carried Marina to a boiling cauldron, its steam a harbinger of death. The other lobsters in the tank watched in stunned silence, their fate mirroring Marina's. The air filled with the metallic scent of fear. The splash, when it came, was sickening. A sharp cry escaped Marina's throat as she was plunged into the boiling water. Her cries were short-lived, silenced by the bubbling, churning depths. The vibrant orange of her shell turned a horrific, deathly white. Sebastian thrashed against the glass walls of his prison, rage and sorrow burning in his gut. He watched, eyes wide with horror, as Marina's lifeless body was fished out of the pot. It steamed on a metal tray, a gruesome testament to the cruelty inflicted upon them. The sight of Marina's lifeless form shattered something within Sebastian. Despair, cold and heavy, wrapped around him, squeezing the last vestiges of hope from his soul. He watched as Mitch scooped up Marina's body and carelessly tossed it onto a pile of her brethren, their lifeless eyes staring blankly. He retreated to a corner of the tank, the chilling image of Marina's demise seared onto his mind. The other lobsters swam around him, oblivious or perhaps just resigned to their grim fate. But Sebastian couldn't accept it. He wouldn't. A deep guttural growl escaped his throat, a sound alien to the tank's usual silence. It was a sound of mourning, of rage, of the dawning realization that he was alone in a world that had shown him nothing but cruelty. The grief and anger festering inside Sebastian began to twist and contort. His sorrow, as vast as the ocean he longed for, became a breeding ground for something monstrous. He slammed his body against the glass walls of the tank, each impact a testament to his burgeoning rage. His exoskeleton, once a deep crimson, darkened, becoming as black and unforgiving as the abyss he envisioned consuming his tormentors. His claws, already formidable, grew with unnatural speed, their edges sharpening into razor-sharp scimitars. His eyes, once filled with love and longing, now glowed with a malevolent red light. They reflected the inferno of his pain, the promise of retribution that pulsed through his mutated veins. Sebastian was no more. In his place stood Clawgore, a monstrous embodiment of vengeance, ready to unleash his fury upon the world that had wronged him. The tank, once a prison, shattered under Clawgore's might. Shards of glass rained down around him like glittering tears. Customers screamed, fleeing in terror as Clawgore, a vision of crustacean fury, emerged from the wreckage, his eyes glowing with cold fury, locked onto Mitch. The burly worker, his face now drained of its usual indifference, stood frozen in fear. The metal tongs he held clattered to the floor, a hollow sound in the sudden silence. With a speed that belied his size, Clawgore scuttled towards Mitch. His claws, now twice the size of a man's arm, snapped shut around the worker's legs. The sickening crunch of bone echoed through the supermarket as a scream, cut short, painted the air with terror. Clawgore didn't relish in the kill. Mitch was merely an obstacle, the first course in a banquet of vengeance. As the life drained from the worker's eyes, Clawgore was already moving, his gaze sweeping over the fleeing shoppers. He saw in them the same indifference, the same disregard for life that had led to Marina's demise. He didn't harm them, not yet. He needed to send a message, a warning to those who dared to underestimate his kind. Clawgore left Mitch's broken body sprawled on the supermarket floor, a gruesome spectacle for the authorities who would inevitably arrive. But Clawgore was gone, vanished into the night. He had a score to settle, a debt to collect from those who had taken Marina from him. The fishermen who had ripped them from their ocean home, who had condemned them to a life of captivity, would know his wrath. The scent of salt and sea guided Clawgore. He stalked the docks, a monstrous shadow moving through the pre-dawn mist. He found their boat, the Salty Dog, bobbing gently in the harbor. The name, painted in chipped white paint, filled him with a cold, primal fury. The fisherman was sleeping below deck, oblivious to the doom approaching. Clawgore moved with a terrifying grace, his massive claws tearing through the wooden hull of the boat as if it were paper. He emerged in their midst, a nightmare come to life. Pandemonium erupted as the fishermen scrambled for their weapons, their faces etched with terror. But what good were nets and hooks against the raw fury of a creature consumed by vengeance? The fishermen never stood a chance. Their cries for mercy were lost in the sounds of their own destruction. The once pristine deck of the Salty Dog became a scene of unimaginable carnage, painted red with the blood of Clawgore's revenge. As the sun rose, casting long shadows over the harbor, Clawgore stood victorious amongst the wreckage. He surveyed the scene, his chest heaving, his claws dripping with the blood of his enemies. But his victory felt hollow. Marina was gone, and no amount of vengeance could bring her back. He dove into the ocean, the water closing over him like a welcoming embrace. He disappeared into the depths, leaving behind the carnage he had wrought. The ocean depths welcomed Clawgore, hiding him from the horrified eyes of humanity. He swam towards the deepest trenches, the pressure of the water doing little to quell the burning rage that still simmered within him. He knew his work was far from over. The memory of Marina, of her gentle touch and the life they were denied, fueled his rage, transforming it into a cold, unyielding thirst for retribution. The ocean was vast, and Clawgore, no longer a captive but a harbinger of destruction, was free to roam its depths. He became a legend whispered among sailors, a terrifying myth of the deep, a constant reminder that some wounds, even in the deepest abyss, never truly heal, and that sometimes the ocean delivers its own brand of brutal, unrelenting justice.